Alright, so here is my very quick review of Fahrenheit 11/9. This is the new film by Michael Moore, who I think is a very accomplished documentary filmmaker. And can I just say, 2018 has been a great year for documentaries. Like, we had RBG earlier this year, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary. We had Won't You Be My Neighbor, which I just adore. It's one of my favorite films of the year. It's definitely a top 10 material. And then we got Three Identical Strangers, which was, one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard. It's a very compelling documentary, and I really enjoyed it. And then we got McQueen, the Alexander McQueen documentary, which I also loved. And then we have this, Fahrenheit 11/9. So this year has been a fantastic year for documentaries. So about this film. And like I said, this is a new Michael Moore documentary, and if you're not a fan of his work, if you're not a fan of his style, this is not going to win you over. Although I would say this is one of his least confrontational films. This is one of his least abrasive films, I would say. You don't really see him in this film. He's kind of in the background. He still narrates the entire film, and he still shows up every now and then to, talk to whether it's politicians or locals or just, the people in general. But for the most part, you don't really see him. So if you're not a fan of his, face or his the way he talks to people, this film might work for you. Because, you don't really see Michael Moore himself in the camera. Now, this film has been marketed mostly as an anti-president piece. The trailers are all about how did America get here? How did, this country elect this buffoon as a president? But this film is so much more than that. That is still a big part of the film. But it also touches on, so many other issues. For example, the big chunk of this film is all about the Flint water crisis. And I knew enough about the water crisis, but I learned so much more from this film than I ever did through mainstream media. I didn't know how that entire water crisis happened, and the whole corruption behind it. I knew nothing about it, so that was very educational for me. And it also touches on how the Democratic Party, turned into sort of a Republican Party. It was Democratic Party is supposed to represent working class people, and now it's a party that represents the Wall Street and the 1%, the rich donors, and how that contributed to to electing the current president. It talks about the Hillary, and it talks about Obama and Bill Clinton as well. So that was fascinating. I didn't know too much. I know enough. Like I said, just like Flint situation, I knew enough about the DNC, the Democratic Party thing. But I learned more about that through this film. And it also touches on the school shooting at the Parkland High School, the one in Florida. And, it talks about the aftermath, and it, talks about how those survivors, got fed up by the fact that the government didn't do anything for as far as gun control goes. So they took it to the street, and they organized this huge nationwide marches, and how those kids are basically changing the nation. And that was great. But this film is very upsetting, and it's very scary. I at least I found it scary and terrifying. But it is also inspiring, watching these high school kids organizing, big marches and protesting, and, basically trying to make their voice heard. And that is really inspiring. I really liked this. This is a must-watch. I think you should absolutely go see it. Take your family, take your friends, and go see it. And it is one of those films that sparks conversations afterwards. And I know that you you know, in this day and age, you don't really want to see this kind of film, you know, something that upsets you, something that is depressing, because the reality is already depressing. You know, you see this kind of thing every single day, through on TV or on social media, but you really do need to see this. Don't be lazy. Like, there's nothing wrong with educating yourself, and you know, having your eyes open. Like, I certainly had a lot of eye-opening moments, especially about the Flint water crisis. So go see Fahrenheit 11/9 and go vote in November. And this is a must watch.